The journey of caring for a loved one who is living with dementia can be quite challenging. The aim of this podcast is to make caregiving less daunting and more fulfilling. On this platform, we share knowledge, understanding, and experiences. We enlighten, give hope, and encourage, and in the process, create positive awareness about different aspects of dementia. Welcome to my podcast, Dementia Caregivers Corner. My name is Julia Ratladi. Dementia Care, how deep is your love?
In today's episode, I'll be joined by a medical professional, a manager in a rehabilitation facility here in the UK. Together, we'll explore what rehabilitation means in the context of dementia, how it supports individuals in maintaining their independence and well-being. We'll also discuss the challenges faced by people living with dementia and their caregivers when accessing rehabilitation, and most importantly, how these challenges can be addressed to improve the quality of life for people living with dementia. Welcome in today's episode, Carlo Romero.
Hello, Julia. Yes.
How are you this morning?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, it's nice to be in your podcast, and thank you very much for inviting me in this episode.
Yeah, I had to. When I saw your topic and our WhatsApp group, I was like, this topic would benefit my listeners. But let's just get into it. We've just recently completed our MSc in dementia at the University of Hull. We are actually about to graduate.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So yes, it's going to be good.
Yes. And my focus, or my dissertation focus, was on this podcast because I wanted to create awareness in low and middle income countries, including sub-Saharan Africa. But when I looked at the downloads, at the statistics, I found that my podcast is being listened here more compared to the low and middle income countries. And I wanted to find out why. That was the focus of my dissertation. And I looked in our group and I saw that your focus was in rehabilitation in dementia. And I want to know, Carlo, what sparked your interest in that field?
Well, yeah, one thing is because I work in a rehabilitation unit that, support people with brain injuries and neurological conditions. And also dementia is really an interesting topic for me. And it's an emerging topic relating to dementia care. So one thing is in 2017, the World Health Organization released their campaign relating to Rehabilitation 2030. And they recommended that the rehabilitation should be available to everyone, and particularly with the increasing cases of neurological conditions and disability. And since dementia is a disability, it is recommended that rehabilitation should be available for people living with dementia. And based on the United Nations rights for people with disabilities, it's the right to have access with rehabilitation. So hence why I want to explore the emerging topic, which is the rehabilitation relating to dementia care, or rehabilitation-focused dementia care.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. And the fact that it's emerging, so you should be on the top up there to find out why.
So, because I think as well, because when someone say rehabilitation, they always think about something about rehab relating to injuries, relating to spinal cord injuries, or drug addictions, but they don't really specify or think about dementia that can also be improved using the rehabilitation. So it's actually a very highly person-centered concept in dementia care. So
actually, that is my next question. How do you describe rehabilitation in the context of dementia? What is it?
So rehabilitation, it refers to a set of therapies and interventions that aim to improve or maintain independence and cognitive function and improve the quality of life for people with dementia. Unlike traditional rehab, like I said earlier, which focuses on full recovery, people with dementia may benefit from rehabilitation, which focuses on delaying cognitive decline, adapting to changes, and maximizing the remaining abilities of individual. It adopts based on the biopsychosocial model, which is the model of rehabilitation, because as we know that dementia is not just only a pathological issue, it also affects the overall well-being of an individual, also affects their family. So rehabilitation also supports the social and psychological aspect domain of care. So it's just very first, it focuses on the person itself rather than the disease pathology. So yeah, it's very interesting topic.
It is. I can listen to this on and on and on. So tell us then. Do you mean like a person can live well with dementia, and what factors maybe contribute to good quality of life for people living with dementia?
Yes, a person can live well with dementia given with the right support, right environment and care, which improves the quality of life. So particularly here in the UK, most of the initiatives focuses on the living well rather than other like buying well, but it's particularly mostly living well. For example, we have the living well with dementia, which is one of the national strategies of the UK. We also have the well pathway by the NHS, which also focuses on the living well. We also have some really good nonprofit organizations such as the Alzheimer's UK. They have the Dementia Friends, which is the largest and biggest initiative relating to living well, which focuses on promotion of dementia awareness and also initiating dementia friendly communities, promotion of memory and dementia cafes. We also have the Admiral Nursing by model of Dementia UK. One example that is really good is the late writer and activist Wendy Mitchell. She published 3 books relating to her experience to live well in the community. One of the assignments that I wrote is relating to her second book, which is the What I Wish People Knew About Dementia. It's actually a really good book documenting her experience from diagnosis, the challenges that she faced in the community, and it is quite inspiring. And she inspired thousands of people, not just people with dementia, but also people who support people living with dementia, such as their family members. And yeah, it's a very interesting book.
Dementia is an interesting topic. When you're talking of Wendy Michelle, I think, yes, we did an assignment and on her books. What do you think about her living well strategy? I think one of the things that she wanted was to be left to die peacefully, not to be medicated. Or
Yeah,
I read that she ended up refusing to eat as part of her plans. That no, I'm not going to eat because what's the point? I just want to die peacefully.
yeah. In either second book, she actually mentioned about the reason why she refused to eat because of the changes relating to her condition. So the progression of her dementia affects her sense of taste, sense of vision. She found that some food are less appealing to her. There are some foods that she used to like. She mentioned that's actually mushroom on toast. I think she specified that used to enjoy that, but as time goes on, she doesn't like it anymore, which is quite sad. But she adapted to these changes. She also mentioned that some color, like let's say the black napkins or specific color that also causes visual problems. She managed to adopt these things. You know, she tried to personalize her kitchen and also her dining table to suit her needs, which is quite really clever and really effective. And also, yeah, it brings a bit of a light regards to the what the experiences of people living with dementia regards to their progression, especially that she lives on her own.
Yes.
She managed to support herself with that. But I would really definitely recommend to read that book to whoever's listening to this podcast. That Wendy Mitchell's second book, and also her other two couple books that
Yes.
she published before she passed away, unfortunately, last year.
May her soul continue to rest in peace. I mean, she was a champion for dementia awareness in the UK, really.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
When you were mentioning the color aspect of it, I cared for one lady who lived with dementia, and unfortunately, she died as well last year in November. I talked with her daughter on my last episode, just dedicating or honoring her on my podcast because I've learned about dementia through her, by her, you know. So when I got to her house, I found that they were using a black carpet. When she was supposed to come out of the house, she would scream and they didn't know what the problem was until I realized that it was the color of the carpet. She saw it as a hole and she thought she was falling
Yeah.
onto that hole. And I had to ask the family to take it off, to remove it.
That's very nice. Yeah. Yeah. Because Wendy Mitchell documents that, like it looks like a sinkhole for her, like every time she sees someone in uniform wearing black, she can see that someone is like, there's a head, like a floating head. She can't really visualize it's an empty space for her, the black color, which is very common. I know every person with dementia is different, but it is mostly a common, symptom with regards to the issues with visual perceptions with regards to color, particularly with black.
Tell us, how challenging is it to rehabilitate someone living with dementia? I'm asking this because the same lady eventually lost her ability to speak, and she was assigned a physiotherapist to come and assist with the legs. And because she couldn't communicate back to the physio, they ended up giving up on her, like, we can't do this. So my question is, how challenging is it to rehabilitate someone living with dementia?
With regards to the issues with physiotherapy, because there's still a lot of therapeutic nihilism with regards to physiotherapy in dementia. So therapeutic nihilism is about a belief of the healthcare professionals thinking that people with dementia, they're not going to improve or can have some benefits relating to the treatment. So this is very common especially in physiotherapy. So there's actually a lot of studies and surveys saying that, like they prefer to support someone without dementia rather than someone with dementia because of physiotherapy, because of the challenges, like you said, with the communication and also with the participation. So I believe it boils down into mostly about dementia training awareness and also a proper training for those healthcare professionals, because dementia training in some healthcare undergraduate and graduate courses is still lacking. So to address this therapeutic nihilism is definitely recommended for education policymakers or universities to review their courses relating to include dementia training, a specialized one, because eventually they will healthcare professionals, they will encounter someone living with dementia, whether they're not directly, it's not really like, let's say, physiotherapists, nurses, speech and language therapists. They will eventually encounter someone living with dementia, as the cases of people experiencing dementia is increasing globally.
And it was hard for the family because they knew that their mom needed that, the physio, but it cannot be offered because she cannot talk back. I think I've seen something on your introduction, your dissertation that you sent me. You talked about rehabilitation for people who are affected by stroke. Don't they lose the same speech as the people living with dementia? Why is it that it's easier for them to be offered rehabilitation, even though maybe at a particular moment they don't have that speech, but they give up on those living with dementia because they don't have speech?
With regards to someone with stroke and losing their speech, is mostly like it's something that they're being trained with. So, like I said earlier, it is about the awareness. There's still a lot of physiotherapists there. I'm not saying all, that lacks, like specialized dementia training. And like the dementia rehabilitation is an emerging topic, so they don't usually support people with dementia a lot, and especially if you're someone with doesn't much and newly qualified, for example, with less training and less exposure. So tendency you have less, you can offer so much to someone with dementia, and if you got any experience that's just lack of participation and also issues with communication, tendency they would probably would give up, based on the dissertation and also the studies I've read. And like with someone with stroke, tendency the participation is higher because some of them, they have capacity and they're able to explain and also increase participation. But compared to people with dementia, some of them experiencing confusion, some of them would experience some responsive behaviors, which can also be a challenge to healthcare professionals. It's not just only physiotherapy, but also other domains such as speech and language, occupational therapy, also nursing as well. So that's a common challenge that we face.
Yes, yeah. Actually, the next question, as again, you know how to to come in, because I was going to ask you to name the multidisciplinary team that is involved in the rehabilitation, and my question was going to be, Do they work together collaboratively as a team? Do they work effectively? And if not, what could they do to improve that working together to support someone living with dementia?
It is recommended that, like health and social care to collaborate effectively to provide comprehensive dementia care. However, in many cases, there are still gaps in regards to the coordination, which impacts the quality of life for people with dementia and their care partners. So, as a multidisciplinary team, which is composed of, let's say, the doctors, the physiotherapy, nursing, speech and language, other parts of the rehabilitation team, they need to work as a team. I know miscommunication exists, but if some issues or problems are not being solved, it will boil down to affect their patients living with dementia and also the care partners.
Okay, then talk to us about maybe examples from your clinical practice where rehabilitation strategies have been successful in improving the life of someone living with dementia.
For starts, or for people with who are recently diagnosed with dementia, there's high likely chances of looking for a support that's rehabilitative in nature. So, one of the common issues that we're facing, not just only in the UK, but also in other countries, is the lack of aftercare after diagnosis. So, they don't have that much support. So, a tendency for people who are diagnosed with dementia, they will likely go into a path which is rehabilitative in nature because it's more person centered. So examples are like, let's say, memory clinics. So we got memory clinics, which is widely spread in the UK, which is focusing into cognitive rehabilitation. I know memory clinics, they, diagnose people with dementia. So usually when they have issues in the community, they will go into a GPs. They will be recommended to go to a memory clinic. So usually they will give a diagnosis, a mild cognitive impairment, which is common diagnosis before the formal diagnosis of dementia. They also support cognitive rehabilitation in there in memory clinics. We also have hospice care, which focus on the terminal illnesses. I know that dementia is considered a terminal illness, and also legislation that the hospice care are required to support people with dementia, but they also have facing some challenges because they also supporting other conditions, not just only dementia, which is they considered a better priority. They use a rehabilitation model. Then we also have the rehabilitation services. There are some services still in the UK, although not much, that supports people with dementia. There are some services that, although it's not only for dementia, but they have appropriate training to support someone, especially with someone with a stroke with dementia. So they offer the rehabilitation as a overall support to someone with there. So the rehabilitation services with really good training in regards to dementia has higher success in improving the quality of life of people living with dementia.
Mm. Yes, we should not give up on people living with dementia because we think that they cannot take in new information, right? We should just continue to
Yeah,
rehabilitate.
I think so. Yeah, because I think the traditional rehabilitation only focus into full recovery,
Mm.
but if it's someone with dementia, we're mostly into looking into improving or maintaining function. Okay, preventing cognitive decline, even though they don't have any injuries or any other physical disabilities. But as the dementia progresses, it will affect, the motor function, speech, other health conditions in which if we utilize physiotherapy, speech and language therapy, cognitive rehabilitation, there are really good studies that it actually helps in delaying cognitive decline significantly.
Mhm. When I started the introduction or our episode here, I mentioned that my podcast was downloaded less in low and middle income countries. I want to find out, have you come across cases of success? I don't know what to call it, a success, or just cases of rehabilitation in dementia in low and middle income countries as compared to how is done in here in the UK? Is it even there? Is it there? So do we have such in our countries?
Yeah, rehabilitation in dementia, in particularly in low to middle income countries, is underutilized. So the other countries, like say for example, my country, the Philippines,
Mm-hmm.
is still the concept rehabilitation in dementia care is still an emerging concept. So even rehabilitation itself is still underfunded, not just only to support people with dementia, but also other neurological conditions and other spinal cord injuries, for example. So low to middle income countries needs a bit of a look into their policies and also upgrade funding to support not just only spinal cord injuries or neurological conditions or stroke or drug addiction, but they have to also include dementia. So in my country, there's not much rehabilitation that supports people with dementia.
I feel sad. I don't know whether it's the right word when you're talking of policies, because there are no dementia policies in the low and middle income countries, like standalone policies. It's sad. How can we assist, Carlo? Like, how do we assist our governments to create dementia policies for our people? Like dementia policies, not just rehabilitation.
I think, well, in the UK, it is getting better now. I think UK is really good and really advanced with regards to integrating dementia policies into the healthcare system. The sole focus of the dementia care now is more really into person centered. However, in other countries, such as my country of origin, which is the Philippines, is still a family led care, in which a lot of stigma and lack of formal professional guidance in there. So it is quite difficult, although World Health Organization also advises the dementia strategy. However, some countries are still facing some issues such as lack of appropriate funding, and the other countries they have to prioritize any other needs other than dementia, let's say communicable diseases and other conditions other than dementia. So if they don't have that much funding from to support everything, they gonna probably pick and choose whatever's appropriate to the specific country. Let's say in the Philippines, I would say communicable diseases there is still common, such as tuberculosis, HIV, for example. So the government funding would be focused into implementing policies and also support to those issues rather than dementia, because dementia still continues to be a lot of stigma in there and a spiritual belief that, and also that it is part of normal aging, which is quite sad. So yeah, it's quite unfortunate in some low to middle income countries with regards to the issues that they're facing.
Yeah, the stigmas that you're talking about. I'm from Botswana. It's in the southern part of Africa. We're facing the same stigma. It's part of old aging. It's witchcraft. Yes, I've actually read many articles on that. It's so sad. And when you go on social media, you sometimes find old people sometimes experiencing what we know. You and I know that it's sundowning, and they are found in your yard at night, and people will assume that this person have come to bewitch you, or this person is a witch, and sometimes they're just abused.
Yeah, it's very stigmatized, and dementia overall is very stigmatized. Decades ago, it was different in the UK, but now since it's a lot of effort, global government efforts and non-government efforts in increasing dementia awareness. So there's a increase of awareness relating to dementia, like you said, sundowning. So it is very common, particularly to someone with severe or late stage dementia, because it affects the usually affect later day and affects families as well. Although the main cause is still unknown, but it's usually a common symptom that has responsive behaviors later in the day. So some scientists are saying that it's particularly relating to circadian rhythm, relating to sleep cycle pattern, but it's still something that they have to look into more and needs further studies.
Oh, okay. Quite interesting. Let's come now to our last question, going back to rehabilitation. So, and as an expert, as somebody who is working already in the dementia rehabilitation space, what key improvements are needed in health and social care services to better support people living with dementia?
I think this just not just only in the UK, but this is as an overall should be applied to other countries as well. Is we need for better integration, accessibility, and person-centered care.
Mm-hmm.
Like the integration, the lack of coordination. So, for example, here in the UK, we still a lack of coordination between the hospitals and care homes and community services that leads to fragmented care. So, for example, someone is diagnosed with dementia in a surgery or clinic and was transferred to a tertiary levels or hospital. The communication could break down, and also the discharge plan is not followed through. So there is still issues with continuation of care. So that's something that they have to look into by improving the communication and the links of the dementia care pathway from diagnosis to follow up and also to discharge. Accessibility, I think accessibility relating to rehabilitation is still limited, even in the UK, as the core focus of some rehabilitation is focusing into stroke, other neurological conditions, but we should implement also increased awareness that rehabilitation also is very beneficial for people with dementia. Just also boils down into funding and awareness. If we increase the funding relating to rehabilitation services, so I do hope that they're gonna continue making rehabilitation services that solely focus into people with dementia. I know some rehabilitation services has appropriate training, but not everyone has those appropriate training to support people with dementia. And lack of specialized training really to some of the healthcare professionals. There's still some studies, and also that there's still lack of specialized dementia training to undergraduate and graduate programs. So I think it should be really implemented that specialized dementia training should be integrated into every graduate training for healthcare professionals, because it is likely that they're going to encounter someone living with dementia in the future, particularly that dementia is the leading cause of death in UK and Wales in 2023 national statistics. So yeah, the trend is increasing, moving into dementia.
Okay. Okay, lastly, anything that I have not asked you that we think would benefit our listeners?
I think about is the dementia awareness really. I think it's the appropriate support. Like anyone can live well with dementia, because there's still a lot of stigma relating to dementia. The use of positive language is not being utilized because still a lot of people they demean people with dementia with the use of negative language. If you're diagnosed with dementia, it's not the end of the world. A lot of people live well or live better with dementia. And so, for example, Wendy Mitchell. So reading her book is actually a really good example and also a positive experience. They will gain a lot more knowledge and insights relating to that it is possible to live well with dementia. With regards to dementia rehabilitation, it is an emerging topic, but it is increasingly available, and some of the rehabilitation services are improving their dementia training and dementia care. So it is something that is getting better really. So I do hope that most of the rehabilitation services has the appropriate dementia training that support people with dementia. It's not just only so.
No, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Let me take this time to thank you, our listeners, for tuning into this episode. If you have enjoyed our conversation or are passionate about dementia care, please consider leaving a review and sharing this episode with someone who might benefit from it. Your support helps us reach more and more people and raise awareness about dementia-related illnesses. Until next time, take care. Ta-da!
Dementia care. How deep is your love?